I believed the magic of the mirror was contained, a reflection I could visit and then leave behind. But now, Mara follows me into the waking world, rewriting my body to be more like her. You know that feeling when you wake up from a really vivid dream, and for a second, you're not sure what's real? That was my entire morning. I was tangled up in my duvet, and the room was filled with that dull gray light that just makes you want to stay in bed forever. For a split second, I actually managed to convince myself that the shop, the curator, the mirror, it was all just a weird stress dream. But then I rolled over, and my cheek brushed against my pillowcase, and it felt different. It was just a cheap cotton pillowcase, nothing special, but it felt like silk. My skin slid against it with this smoothness that made me freeze. I sat bolt upright. My hand moved to my face on its own. I traced the line of my jaw, then my cheek. It was gone. That sandpaper grit of morning stubble I had to deal with for years, completely gone. My skin was just smooth. I scrambled out of bed and stumbled into the bathroom, making sure not to even glance at the corner where the antique mirror stood, covered up again in its dusty sheet. I wasn't ready for her to call me a liar again. I flicked on the fluorescent light, bathing the tiny room in that harsh, clinical glare that shows you every single flaw. I leaned over the sink, gripping the porcelain until my knuckles were white, and I stared. The person looking back was still Julian, mostly. I got closer, my nose almost touching the glass. My pores seemed smaller. The whole texture of my skin was refined, softer. The heavy shadow on my brow bone seemed less harsh, like an artist had smudged the charcoal lines of my face. And my eyelashes, I'd never even thought about my eyelashes before, but they looked darker, thicker, casting these tiny feathered shadows. "It's just the light," I whispered. But the voice that came out sounded airy. It was missing its usual morning gravel. I grabbed my shaving cream. The metal can felt cold and aggressively masculine in my hand. I needed the routine. I needed the familiar ritual of the blade to ground me in the body everyone else saw. I lathered up, hiding my new face under a thick mask of white foam. I picked up the razor. I started the first drag down my cheek, and there was nothing. No resistance. No rasp of hair being cut. The blade just slid over my skin like it was moving through water. I rinsed it in the sink. Nothing but white cream swirled down the drain. Not a single dark speck of hair. This time, when I wiped my face, I was almost frantic. I scrubbed hard with the towel until my skin was red and stinging. But the boy in the mirror was still off. The eyes were too wide, the licks too full. It was like looking at a picture of yourself that someone had secretly photoshopped. And then I saw my hand. My fingers looked longer. My knuckles weren't as rough and blocky. I flexed them, watching the light play over the smooth skin. These weren't my hands, not really. Not the hands I'd had yesterday. Panic started flooding my chest. I threw on my usual armor, an oversized gray hoodie, and baggy jeans that swallowed my frame. I even cinched my belt a notch tighter, noticing that my waist felt smaller. The denim bunched up weirdly around my hips now. I grabbed my backpack and practically fled my own room. But as I passed the mirror, I saw the edge of the gray sheet flutter, and just for a second, a single silver thread caught the morning light, shimmering with an ethereal glow. I didn't look back. Walking through the school hallway felt like trying to swim through molasses. Every glance from another student felt accusatory. I could feel my own face, this new, smooth, soft thing, hidden under my hood, and it was screaming. I kept my chin tucked into my collar, praying no one would look too closely.
Hey!
I jumped so hard my backpack slid right off my shoulder and hit the floor. It was Sophie. She was leaning against the lockers next to mine, just watching me. Her artist's eyes were narrowed.
Rough night?
She asked. Didn't sleep well, I mumbled, hiding my face behind my open locker door. The usual.
Look at me, Julian.
I forced myself to turn, and she stepped right into my personal space, her brow furrowed in concentration. She almost touched my jaw, but pulled her hand back.
Did you do something?
Her gaze was tracing the line of my nose, the curve of my lips, the strange, luminous quality of my skin.
You look bright, like someone turned a lamp on behind your eyes.
I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice tight. It's the light. These fluorescents are garbage.
It's not the light,
she said, her voice dropping even lower. She leaned in.
Your face, it looks softer. Did you use some kind of skin cream? You don't have a single pore. It's like you've been airbrushed.
I turned back to my locker and just started shoving books around. I'm just tired, okay? It's the same face I've always had. The lie felt like a stone in my throat.
I look at you every day. That's why I know something's different. You're vibrating, like you're terrified and thrilled at the same time.
I slammed my locker shut. The sound echoed down the hall. I have to get to class, I said, and walked away as fast as I could, but I could feel her eyes on my back. The second I got home after school, I locked myself in my room and went straight to the corner to tear the sheet off the mirror. The glass seemed to hum, like a vibration I could feel in my teeth. The girl in the frame was waiting, and tonight she was wearing my own clothes, the gray hoodie, the baggy jeans, but on her they looked different. The hoodie was pushed up, showing these slender, graceful forearms. The jeans sat on hips that had a new, subtle curve. She looked right. Is this the cost? I whispered. The girl in the glass reached out a steady hand. I raised mine to meet it. As my fingers brushed the cool, polished surface, a jolt of static electricity snapped between us. It was a prickling warmth that raced up my arm like 1,000 tiny needles made of light, and my reflection changed. My hair, my short, jagged boy's haircut, it began to move. The strands lengthened in this fluid, impossible way. It flowed over the tops of my ears, growing from a sandy brown to a rich, lustrous mahogany. I pulled my hand back from the mirror, and the change held. I reached up with trembling fingers and tangled them in the new, silky strands. It was real. I could feel the weight of it. I looked back at the girl in the glass, and she smiled. The silver moths carved into the frame seemed to glow with a faint violet light, and I felt this terrifying, irresistible urge to see just how much more the glass could correct. I was getting addicted. By Thursday, my hair was a soft bob that curled under my jaw. At dinner, my dad stared at me. "You look different, Julian," he said. "Pale, and your hair is getting messy. Go to the barber tomorrow." I just nodded, my heart hammering. My voice would have given me away. Every night, it was the same ritual. I'd go to the mirror, desperate for the next change. I sat on the floor, watching the silver moths on the frame begin their violet pulse as the sun went down. Every time I dared to touch my own skin, or tuck a lock of my new hair behind my ear, the mirror answered. And then came the night it all changed again. I was sitting in the dark, just watching her. She leaned in close to the surface, and her breath fogged the inside of the pane. She pressed her index finger to the mist she'd made, and she began to draw. The sound was this high, crystalline squeak of skin on glass. M-A-R-A. It sat there, written in the vapor of another world, glowing in the moonlight. I reached out, my own finger tracing the letters on my side of the glass. And I whispered it. Mara. The mirror buckled with light. A ripple of energy cascaded from the name, washing over the reflection. I felt this pull at the base of my skull. A sweet, terrifying suction, like the mirror was inhaling the last of a boy I never was. And down at the base of the frame, a new shape emerged from the silver. A tiny, perfect moth unfurled its wings, joining the others. The fog on the glass faded, taking the letters with it. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it was a contract.
Next time, on his reflection of her, when the mirror's magic fails, Julian is forced to pay a new, terrifying price, a shameful secret for every piece of his true self. But as each confession brings the girl in the glass to life, the changes become impossible to hide from a father whose suspicion is turning to rage. Trapped between a demanding magic and his family's horror, the cost of honesty is about to become more than he can afford. See what happens, only in the next episode.